profound effects all over. And so without further ado, I want to have Chairman Omali Yeshitela to address us on the Black Community Convention that's going to be taking place here in St. Louis. Okay.
We say uhuru because it means freedom. And it means freedom in Swahili. We think that's important. If you call our office any place, when we greet each other, when we leave each other, we say uhuru, because we think that freedom should be on the minds of African people 24 hours a day. And we also think it's important as a people to be able to maintain connection with who we are as a people, because that's one of the things that's always been under assault for Black people here. And for some people, that's difficult to deal with, but the fact is that it's impossible to get on a ship in Africa in 1619 as an African, and to get off that same ship in Jamestown, Virginia, as a Negro. If we were Africans when we got on the ship, we were Africans when we got off the ship. And that's been something that's difficult for many of us to maintain, especially since we've been beaten up for such a long period of time, and Africa has been slandered so much. It's just incredible. But the fact is that when we look at human civilization itself, when you look at human life, its origin is Africa. And if Africa is extraordinarily poor today, if it faces all kinds of problems, being able to feed and clothe ourselves, then it's not natural. Obviously, the place where human life started is unnatural. Nobody had to come and plant Black people. I mean, it's unnatural for that starvation and poverty that we see every place else. So I just wanted to say that, and to give a special appreciation to Nina, because it's organization. And that's the thing that we suffer so much, not having organization. It's a critical question, especially poor people. Only thing you got is organization. You ain't got no money. You ain't got no influence. The mayor's phone number is not in your back pocket, right? So organization is what is so critical. And that's why I really appreciate this neighborhood association. It's not just a typical neighborhood association from what I've been able to hear. And I'm looking at people coming forward, offering up all kinds of advice and having an opportunity to talk about what it is that you're about. It brings the community together. And that's an extremely important thing, because most of the neighborhood associations, in fact, neighborhood associations historically function as kind of entities for police intervention in communities. And they function as basis for people who intend to run for political office, and they get ensconced in the neighborhood associations. And the neighborhood, it's a limited kind of thing. And I really appreciate how this neighborhood association is just reaching out throughout the community. It's really important. The fact is that Sister Karen, you know, the kind of stuff that you brought to us in terms of information, everybody, the information that you brought is extremely important. But we have an oppressor, and there is an oppressor. You can't have oppressed people without an oppressor. And so if you have oppression, there's an oppressor somewhere. And what they will do, especially when it comes to African people, is that they will allow individuals to succeed. But it's the group. It's the group that they hold back. And that's one of the reasons it's so important for us to have organization, so that we don't have to express our aspirations just as individuals. I appreciate so much of what's been said about what we can do as individuals to move forward. But that forward movement of individuals, if we are really to be successful, has to occur within a strategic trajectory for the group the group, and that's part of what I wanted to talk to you about. So on July 12th, Saturday, July 12th, and Sunday, July 13th, we are organizing a Black Community Convention. Here's a weakness that we have. Most of us do not have influence outside of the structures that they've created for us. You live in a ward, that's it. You can vote for the mayor, that's it. But there are people who make plans for us who don't have to be restricted to wards and the mayors. In fact, they tell the mayor what to do. In 1972, something was created for the city of St. Louis that was called the Team 4 plan. You should Google that if you don't have access to it. And it was something that was brought here. The objective is they characterize it as benign neglect, let it rot in terms of this community where we live. So we're in the process now of talking about the important kinds of improvements that need to be made in this community, the economic development that needs to happen in this community. We need to remember that part of what we're doing is overcoming this Team 4 plan. Even if you look at this thing called LRA, the so-called, how do they characterize it? The land bank. The land bank. It was the first land bank in this country was created right here in St. Louis. And it's ostensibly to cure blight. That's what they said it's for. And how do they cure blight? With the control of taxation and things like that, they're able to take Black people's property. They're able also with code enforcement and things like that. You've got these old sisters, old women, widows often, who can't make the kinds of repairs that need to be made and what have you, end up losing their properties. The city of St. Louis is the largest property owner in this city. Thousands of properties have been taken from Black people. And then the LRA is there, and it's a land bank. And it's a land bank for people like Paul McKees and other wealthy so-called developers and investors, and they get hundreds sometimes of properties at one time. It's a land bank they characterize it as. And it creates the blight that they say they're supposed to cure. And it's intentional for a number of reasons. And it chases the African community out. It chases us out of St. Louis. I've forgotten how many Black people have chased out of this city in the last 10 years alone. I mean, thousands of Black people have been chased out of this city. Your city, the buildings deteriorate, extraordinary poverty that's here in this city. And then people see properties that's been abandoned, used for drugs, used for all other kinds of things. And nobody wants to live in that kind of community. And so people are pushed out of the community by those conditions. And I'm talking about economic pressures, political pressures that impact the community. And this is really something that we need to understand. There was an older person here who was so concerned, he said, about crime, that he didn't want the National Guards to come in and occupy this ward. The National Guards. And my concern about crime is to deal with it the way it needs to be dealt with. And that is with economic development. So they have a public policy of police containment. And a public policy of police containment is necessary if you don't intend for there to be any economic development. So if young people can't see the future, if they can't see the future, and if nobody's actively fighting for that future, then they have to go on their own to try to solve the problems. And they solve the problems based on what they see in the movies and things like that, as opposed to the kind of community leadership that we need to be providing. That's what I want to talk about, just providing community leadership. And I'm listening to the ideas about the streets and things like that, and the wonderful ideas that Sister Karen is bringing on. But we need to have a Black community convention where Black people can come together. We can sum up the problems that we have, give the history of the problems that we have, so we don't have people just coming in and acting like history just started yesterday. that youngster did not want to be able to have a future, that somehow that youngster planned to be a drug pusher. And the fact of the matter is, if the legal capitalist system does not provide jobs for them, they get a job in the illegal capitalist economy. And they find their own, they make their own jobs because we are not making them for them. We have to take over. Look at this area. People like to talk about as legendary. The kinds of businesses and things that used to exist in this community where people could walk any place they wanted to go to shop and get whatever they needed. And you've got whole communities disappeared as a matter of policy, not through some tornado coming through, as a matter of public policy. And if you have a public policy of police containment, we demand a public policy of economic development for this community. Yes, this community. And I hope nobody can be upset and offended because when I talk about Black people, you have to say it. This is the contradiction that we're talking about. And anybody who lives in the community advances when the Black community advances. We're talking about social contradictions. Social contradictions, not a personal contradiction. The streets are the way they are, not because it's a social contradiction. When we look at a social contradiction, we see that there are people who have the same kind of circumstances that we have. They got the same kind of problems that we have. And so how do we come together as a collective to deal with those problems? That's what we want to talk about. So on July 12th, Saturday, July 12th, and Sunday, July 13th, we're going to have a convention here and ask people to come and participate. And we want you to participate because part of what has to happen too is that we have to take our future out of the hands of politicians who have no responsibility to anything except themselves. Somebody wake up one morning and say, oh, I think I'm wonderful. I'm going to run for office. No, you can run for office, but here is an agenda that comes from this community, that you have to address. The agenda comes from this community. This is what this community wants. And this is the thing that we're talking about. We can come together. We can vote on this. We can have workshops and vote on how to solve the problem. We can have workshops on the streets issue. People need to, it needs not to just you have to travel from community to community, bring the community together and say this, we agree on what this brother has brought to this project. Or we don't agree. We can debate it. We can say in the community, and this is what we want. And so I just want to say this. I'm not just talking. Most of my life has been involved to changing the circumstances of Black people in this country and much of the world. From a very young age, I was engaged in stuff like working for the civil rights movement and working for voting rights. I've been almost killed, jailed, because of working to win the rights for Black people to vote. But we didn't win the right for Black people to vote to have politicians who would sell us down the drain. And people say, well, our people died for the right to vote. We died in the struggle around voting because we saw that as a way to advance the community, advance our people, to advance everything for us. That's what has to happen. And I believe that is possible, and that's one of the reasons that we are talking about it now. So there's a lot of work that has to be done. We need to organize precinct by precinct. All these precincts, they need to belong to the people, have our collective organizations. This convention should give us an opportunity to create precinct captains and to facilitate the agenda that comes from the convention. This is what Black people want. It didn't come from some program that a Team 4 that's imposed on the community where those who have the money pay to get ward persons elected, to all the persons elected are paid to get the mayor elected. We come together. We say this is what we want. And if you don't deliver what we want as a community, we have the ability to take the power from you. There has to be the ability to pay a consequence. If you don't have an ability to pay a consequence, Paul McKees will continue to be the one that determines our future for us and for our children. So I'm hoping that this neighborhood association is the evidence of a community that wants to assume the responsibility for leading ourselves. Assume the responsibility that I know that my child is going to have a future, not because a good white person or Paul McKees or somebody else says it, because we're gonna take this future in our own hands. We're gonna carve out and define what this future is and what it should look like. That's what you're supposed to do. That's democracy. And that's what we're struggling for. So I'm hoping that there are people here in this room who are willing to play a role in building this convention. Because there's a lot of work that's going to have to be done between now and July 12th. That's not much time. But it's something that I'm convinced that we can do. So please indicate your willingness. I think there's somebody who has a little flyer or something with some information on it. And we are hopeful. We're looking forward. This is not a negative thing that we are talking about. I have been attacked. My house has been firebombed. I have assassination attempts have been made on me. I have been arrested by the United States government because they say when I talk about reparations for Black people, the Russians told me to say it. This is what has happened. My house right here on Redbud, and I purposely moved to Redbud. When we got here, I said, you live on Red? Yep, right there on Redbud, in the heart of the community. When we came here, some of you remember what this place was like before we did what we've done to it. Some of you remember what this street, this corridor was like before we did. This is what we need to do for all of our community, and we can do it collectively. We don't have to wait on anybody. We can set the terms for what our future is going to be ourselves. That's the thing that we're talking about, and that's why we want to build this Black Community Convention. That's why I'm so happy to see Nina here, and I appreciate it so much, and thank you for participating with me. Uhuru.
Pete. That was very, very powerful. Very, very powerful. And just to reiterate, this is a